The betrayal unveiled in the sprawling void of space, where alliances were as fragile as the stars themselves. Humanity had placed its trust in the Galactic Council. For years, the Council had portrayed itself as a beacon of peace and cooperation, a coalition of advanced species working together for the greater good of the galaxy. Earth, still a fledgling member of this interstellar community, had eagerly joined, hoping to secure a place among the stars. But the illusion of harmony was shattered when Sergeant Eugene Coleman, a battle-hardened veteran of the Earth Defense Forces, and his squad were captured during a covert reconnaissance mission on the distant planet of Gamma Triangula 9. The mission, initially intended to gather intelligence on rumored Council activities, quickly turned into a nightmare as they were ambushed and taken prisoner by the Jim-Hadar, one of the Council's most feared and ruthless species. Imprisoned in a dark, cold cell within the Jim-Hadar's brutal prison complex, Coleman and his squad endured unimaginable torture. The air was thick with the stench of fear and blood, the walls echoing with the screams of his comrades as they were subjected to inhuman experiments and brutal interrogations. The Jim-Hadar Inquisitors, led by the sadistic Razor, were relentless in their pursuit of Earth's military secrets, employing every method of pain and psychological torment they could devise. Yet, amid the agony, Coleman clung to a singular purpose, a hidden objective that had been given to him before the mission began. While their primary goal was to gather intelligence, their secondary objective was far more critical: to record the Council's atrocities and expose the truth to all of humanity. Using covert signals and coded taps, the squad managed to document their suffering, capturing the horror of their captivity. As Razor loomed over Coleman, preparing to inflict what he believed would be the sergeant's final moments of torment, salvation came in the form of Earth's elite Phoenix Corps. The rescue team smashed into the compound, their sudden and fierce assault laying waste to the Jim-Hadar guards. Dragging his broken body to a terminal, Coleman transmitted the evidence to Earth's command, along with a dire warning: the Council was not the benevolent ally it pretended to be. They were preparing to annihilate humanity, and Earth needed to be ready. The escape and the warning. The Phoenix Corps' attack was swift and decisive, but it came at a cost. The compound was left in ruins, a smoking reminder of the brutality that had taken place within its walls. As the evacuation shuttle tore through the void, fleeing the destruction behind them, Coleman lay strapped to a gurney, his body ravaged by the torments he had endured. Medics worked frantically to stabilize the few surviving members of his squad, their blood-soaked uniforms a testament to the price they had paid for Earth's salvation. Despite the haze of pain and the drugs flooding his system, Coleman's mind remained sharp, focused on the mission that still lay ahead. The evidence he had transmitted was now on its way to the heart of human space, where Earth's leaders would have to grapple with the shattering implications of what it contained. Days later, Coleman awoke in the sterile white confines of an isolation ward deep within a secure military facility on Earth. His existence, along with that of his comrades, was a closely guarded secret. From his bed, Coleman watched as grim-faced doctors and psychiatrists tended to his squad's grievous wounds. The haunted looks in their eyes told him that the road to recovery would be long and difficult, but even as his body struggled to heal, his spirit remained unbroken. He had endured the unendurable, and now humanity faced an existential threat unlike any it had known before. But Earth was not ready to act, not yet. Command had decided to keep Coleman and his squad under wraps, at least until they could figure out their next move. This inactivity gnawed at him. He knew that every moment they hesitated, the Council drew closer to launching their attack. It was during one of these restless moments that the door to the ward opened, admitting a battle-scarred figure in the uniform of an Earth Defense Forces general. The man introduced himself as General Thaddeus Briggs, a grizzled veteran with a reputation for being as tough as nails. "Sergeant Coleman," Briggs said, his voice a gravelly rumble, "I'll get right to the point. We need you." Coleman struggled to sit up straighter, ignoring the lances of pain that shot through his body. "Sir, my squad and I are ready to get back in the fight. Just give us the word." Briggs held up a hand, his expression grim. Son, what you and your boys went through, it's not something most men could come back from. Command's decided to keep you under wraps for now, at least until we can figure out our next move. Coleman's eyebrows furrowed, a flash of anger sparking in his eyes. With respect, sir, we can't afford to sit on our asses while the council prepares to wipe us out. We need to be out there warning our people, getting ready for what's coming. The general sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. It's not that simple, Coleman. The council's already spinning their version of events, making you out to be a bunch of delusional head cases. If we go public with this too soon, they'll bury us in doubt and confusion. No, we need to be smart about this. He fixed Coleman with a penetrating stare. That's where you come in, Sergeant. Or should I say, Captain Coleman? I'm putting together a special task force off the books to start figuring out how we're going to fight these bastards, and I want you on it. Coleman blinked, surprise warring with determination on his battered features. I don't know what to say, sir. I'm no officer, no strategist. I'm just a grunt who got lucky enough to survive. Briggs shook his head. You're more than that, son. You've seen the enemy up close in ways no one else has. You know how they think, how they operate. That's intel we're going to need if we're going to have a chance in hell of beating them. The general leaned forward, his eyes boring into Coleman's. I won't lie to you, Captain. The odds are stacked against us. The council's got tech and numbers we can't even begin to match, and there are plenty of people right here on Earth who'd rather bury their heads in the sand than face up to the truth of what's coming. He straightened, teeth clenched with resolve. But we're not going down without a fight. Humanity's faced long odds before, and we've always come out swinging. With men like you leading the charge, I know we can do it again. Coleman felt a surge of emotion rising in his throat, a mix of pride, humility, and ironclad resolve. He thought of his squad, the brave men and women who had endured the unendurable beside him, and of the billions more who now looked to soldiers like him to keep them safe from the oncoming storm. General Briggs, he said, his voice rough but unwavering, I'll do whatever it takes, give whatever I have to give, for my squad, for Earth, for the whole damn human race. If the council wants a war, then by God we'll give them one they'll never forget. The general nodded, a ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. That's what I wanted to hear, Captain. Now let's get to work. We've got a planet to save. Rallying the resistance. The moment Coleman stepped out of the military hospital, the glare of camera flashes blinded him. The deafening roar of reporters clamoring for answers filled the air. He pushed through the throng, ignoring the pain that lanced through his body with every step. His mind was set on the mission ahead, preparing Earth for the inevitable war that was coming. Captain Coleman, what message do you have for the people of Earth? A journalist called out, thrusting a microphone towards him. Coleman paused, turning to face the sea of expectant faces. His eyes, haunted by the memories of Razor's torture chamber, blazed with a newfound purpose. The truth, he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly hushed crowd. The truth about what's really happening out there and who's responsible for it. In the weeks that followed, Coleman's face became a fixture on news broadcasts and social media feeds. He stood before packed auditoriums, his uniform crisp despite the dark circles under his eyes, recounting in vivid detail the horrors he and his squad had endured. They called themselves our allies, Coleman told a rapt audience in New Delhi, but while they shook our hands with one set of tentacles, they were readying the knife with another. I've seen what the council does to those they consider lesser beings, and make no mistake, that's exactly how they see us. As Coleman's message spread, so did the controversy. Corporate-owned media outlets began running hit pieces, painting him as an unstable veteran pushing conspiracy theories. Politicians loyal to the council decried his dangerous rhetoric and called for him to be silenced. But for every voice raised against him, a dozen more rallied to his cause. In London, Paris, and Lagos, crowds gathered to hear Coleman speak, chanting his name and demanding action against the council and its earthbound collaborators. We've got Benedict Arnold's walking among us, Coleman declared during a live-streamed address. CEOs and senators who've sold us out for a seat at the alien table, well, I've got news for them. There are no seats at that table, just dinner plates. He began naming names, exposing backroom deals and secret council investments. Each revelation sent shockwaves through the corridors of power, toppling careers and shattering reputations. As the pressure mounted, Earth's authorities struck back. Coleman narrowly escaped an accidental gas leak in his apartment. 2 of his fellow soldiers died in a suspicious car crash. The message was clear: keep quiet or else. But Coleman refused to be silenced. He went underground, coordinating with a network of hackers, dissidents, and disillusioned military personnel. They called themselves the Shadow Front, and their first major action shook the foundations of Earth's power structure. Millions of classified documents flooded the internet, laying bare the full extent of the Council's machinations. Videos of secret meetings, financial records of bribes and kickbacks, plans for re-education centers to be built on Earth. The truth could no longer be denied. Cities erupted in protest. Angry mobs stormed corporate headquarters and government buildings. In Washington, D.C., the White House lawn became a sea of placards demanding Earth for Earthlings and no more alien lies. Coleman watched the chaos unfold from a hidden bunker, surrounded by banks of computer screens and former Spec Ops soldiers. He felt a mix of pride and trepidation as he saw his words, his suffering, ignite a global movement. "We've opened their eyes," he told his comrades. "Now comes the hard part." As government crackdowns intensified, Coleman's resistance cells sprang into action. They moved in the shadows, striking Council-aligned targets with surgical precision. A weapons research facility in the Urals went up in flames. A prison camp for dissidents in the Australian outback saw its security systems fail, allowing hundreds to escape. With each successful operation, Coleman's legend grew. Graffiti of his face appeared on city walls worldwide. Children played humans versus aliens in the streets, each wanting to be the heroic Captain Coleman. But even as hope began to flourish, Coleman knew the real battle loomed on the horizon. He stood in the Resistance's makeshift war room, studying holographic projections of Council fleet movements. "They're coming," he said grimly to his assembled lieutenants. "And when they do, it'll make what I went through look like a day at the beach." One of the younger soldiers, barely out of his teens, looked up at Coleman with a mix of fear and determination. "What do we do, sir?" Coleman's hand unconsciously traced the scars on his face, a reminder of what was at stake. "We do what humanity's always done when backed into a corner. We fight, and this time, we fight for keeps." The Shadow Front strikes back. The Council's full-scale invasion was the nightmare Coleman had long anticipated. Earth's defenses, a patchwork of hastily assembled fleets and repurposed technologies, braced for the impact. Coleman, now a key leader in Earth's resistance, found himself at the helm of the Jovian Thunder, a captured and retrofitted Council carrier. The ship's bridge buzzed with tension as reports of the approaching armada filled the screens. "Nova Corps, you are clear for launch," Coleman ordered, his voice cutting through the din. "Hit them hard and fast. Show these bastards what humanity can do." A swarm of fighters erupted from concealed hangars across the solar system. At their head flew Angela Reeves, ace pilot and Nova Corps commander. Her voice rang out across the comms, cool and determined. "All wings, form up on me. Remember your training. Watch each other's backs, and let's send these Xeno bastards packing." The battle was chaos incarnate. Council dreadnoughts unleashed salvos that vaporized asteroids, while Nova Corps pilots weaved through the maelstrom of energy beams and plasma torpedoes. Coleman's voice cut through the din. "Reeves, we've located Zira's command ship. Can your squad punch a hole for us?" "With pleasure, sir," Reeves replied. "Nova Squad, on me. Let's clear a path for the Jovian Thunder." What followed was a masterclass in piloting. Reeves's squadron danced through the storm of death, targeting weak points in the enemy's formation. One by one, Zira's escort ships erupted in flames, leaving a narrow corridor of space open. "Path cleared, Captain," Reeves called out. "Give them hell." The Jovian Thunder surged forward, its experimental shield technology barely holding against the onslaught. Coleman gripped the command rail, teeth clenched. "All hands, prepare for boarding action." Grappling beams lashed out, securing the Thunder to Zira's flagship. Boarding pods punched through the hull like angry wasps, and Coleman led the charge, his rebuilt body enhanced with cutting-edge cybernetics. "Push forward," he roared, pulse rifle spitting death. "We end this today." The corridors of Zira's ship ran red with alien ichor, but the cost was high. Good men and women fell with every meter gained. Coleman's heart ached for the lives lost, even as his tactical mind pushed on. Finally, they reached the bridge. Coleman kicked down the door, weapon raised. General Zira, a hulking ruin covered in battle scars, turned to face him. "So," the alien growled, The slave comes to challenge its master. Coleman's eyes blazed with cold fury. I'm nobody's slave and you're under arrest. Zira laughed, a harsh grating sound. You think this changes anything, human? You've merely delayed the inevitable. Zira snarled, mandibles clicking in defiance even as Coleman secured him in restraints. Before Coleman could respond, the ship rocked violently. Alarms blared as a voice crackled over the intercom. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. Massive council fleet inbound. Coleman's eyes widened. He tapped his comm link. Reeves, status report. It's bad, sir. Angela's voice came through, strained and breathless. We're talking hundreds of ships, dreadnoughts, carriers, the works. They're led by some monster of a vessel. Never seen anything like it. Coleman's mind raced. They had won the battle, but the war was far from finished. All forces fall back to defensive positions. We need to regroup. As the human fleet retreated, Coleman studied the tactical displays. The sheer number of enemy vessels was staggering. At their center loomed a behemoth that dwarfed even Zira's flagship. I know that ship, Zira rumbled, mandibles twitching in what might have been a smile. That's the Void Hammer, Supreme Admiral Gortak's personal command vessel. Coleman's blood ran cold. He had heard whispers of Gortak, a tactical genius renowned for his ruthlessness. If he was here, the next phase of the war would be unlike anything humanity had faced before. The cost of war, as the war dragged on, the line between right and wrong began to blur. The cost of survival grew heavier with each passing day, and Coleman found himself forced to make decisions that weighed heavily on his conscience. With Earth's colonies being devastated and support for the resistance waning, he authorized the use of the Corvin Swarm, a terrifying weapon that turned the tide of battle but at a great moral cost. The Corvin Swarm was a fleet of ever-replicating hunter-killer drones, each one a nightmare of alien and human technology fused together. They tore through the Council's ships like a scythe through wheat, but the devastation they wrought was indiscriminate. Civilian ships, supply lines, even entire space stations were caught in the crossfire. The realization that the Council's true power lay not just in their fleets, but in their ability to sow discord and division among humanity, led Coleman to initiate the Corvin Protocol. He targeted collaborators and Council sympathizers with brutal efficiency, rooting out traitors wherever they hid. The purges were swift and merciless, leaving no room for doubt or hesitation. The war had changed him, hardening his resolve but also eroding the ideals he once held dear. Meanwhile, the Council's forces retaliated with equal ferocity. They deployed their own doomsday weapons, targeting Earth's outlying settlements with arc-ferric devastators, planetary-scale weapons that could manipulate magnetic fields to catastrophic effect. In one devastating strike, the new Boston colony was reduced to a hellscape of ash-choked skies and crumbling cityscapes, where once stood gleaming towers and bustling streets. 50 million colonists. Gone in an instant, Admiral Graves whispered, her face ashen as she reviewed the damage. This is Gortak's response to our guerrilla campaign. He's escalating beyond all reason. Coleman's fists clenched as the grim statistics scrolled across the screen. We have no choice, he declared, his voice hardening with resolve. Initiate the Corvin Protocol! Ready the antimatter warheads! The decision was not made lightly. Coleman knew the stakes, knew that the price of victory would be steep. But there was no other option. The Council had shown its true face, and now humanity had to fight fire with fire. Hours later, Coleman stood on the Jovian Thunder's observation deck, watching as the sleek, otherworldly forms of the Corvin hunter-killers streaked away towards Gortak's fleet. Their black-purple hulls seemed to drink in the starlight, grim harbingers of the devastation to come. The battle that followed was unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. Antimatter explosions bloomed like deadly flowers among the Council ships, while Rip Stalkers, advanced, stealth-equipped fighters, tore through hull plating with inhuman efficiency. But Gortak's forces were not so easily defeated. They unleashed torrents of energy that vaporized entire squadrons, leaving nothing but cosmic debris in their wake. As the casualty reports poured in, Coleman felt something harden within him. There would be no quarter given, no mercy shown. This war had become a crucible that would either forge humanity into an unstoppable force or reduce it to cosmic ash. Amidst the carnage, Admiral Graves approached, her eyes fever-bright with the madness of battle. Sir? We've intercepted transmissions. There's a hidden enemy outpost in the Fornax Nebula. Coleman nodded grimly. Prepare a strike team. We're going in. The assault on the Fornax facility was swift and merciless. Coleman watched from the command ship as Graves led her force through the twisting corridors of the alien structure. What they found inside chilled him to the bone. It's a bioweapons lab, Graves reported, her voice tight with disgust. Run by the ruin. They call it the Nexus Project. Coleman's blood ran cold as he reviewed the data. The ruin were developing a terror serum designed to weaken humanity both physically and psychologically. A final, insidious effort to break Earth's resistance. But as he processed this new horror, Coleman noticed a change in Graves. Her movements were erratic, her eyes wild. The neural cyber assimilation was taking its toll, bringing out a frightening, xenophobic rage. With a heavy heart, Coleman made a decision. He needed answers, and there was only one place to get them. Prepare my shuttle, he ordered. I'm meeting with the Scion Overmind. The final confrontation. The Scion Overmind was a vast consciousness, a network of minds that spanned the galaxy. Meeting with it was a risk, but one Coleman had to take. As he stepped into the chamber where the Overmind's presence filled every corner, he felt the weight of the galaxy's fate pressing down on him. Archon Talvar orchestrates this conflict, the Overmind's multitude of voices intoned, resonating with a depth that seemed to echo across dimensions. Both sides danced to the Viso's tune. The revelation hit Coleman like a sledgehammer. The entire war, the destruction, the sacrifices, it had all been manipulated by the Viso, a shadowy faction within the Galactic Council that sought to reshape the galaxy in its image. But the worst was yet to come. The Overmind revealed the existence of a cabal within humanity's own ranks, traitors who had conspired with the Viso for a taste of power in the new galactic order. As Coleman emerged from the meeting, his mind raced. He had to expose the truth, neutralize the traitors, and somehow break the cycle of escalating destruction. But with his most trusted allies, like Graves, succumbing to the madness of war, he realized the price of victory might be his very humanity itself. Returning to the Jovian Thunder, Coleman wasted no time. He ordered Graves to assemble their most trusted Venators, elite soldiers who had been trained to the highest standards of loyalty and discipline. We have traitors in our midst, Coleman said, his voice tight with the weight of the revelation. Maverick Kane of Avalon Aerospace, for starters. But there are more. We move now. Within hours, coalition forces surrounded Avalon's corporate enclave. Kane's private army met them with a hail of plasma fire, turning the pristine corridors into a war zone. Coleman ducked behind a twisted bulkhead, the acrid smell of ozone filling his nostrils. Push forward, he shouted over the din of battle. We cannot let Kane escape. Graves moved like a force of nature, her cybernetic enhancements allowing her to dance through enemy fire. She tore through Avalon's defenses with ruthless efficiency, leaving a trail of broken bodies in her wake. They cornered Kane in his opulent office, the man's carefully manicured facade crumbling as he faced his captors. Coleman leveled his weapon at the industrialist's chest. Talk, he growled. Who else is working with the Viso? Kane's lips curled into a sneer. You have no idea how deep this goes, Coleman. Generals, cabinet members, we've all seen the truth. Humanity's destiny lies at the feet of our new masters. Graves snarled, her augmented fist lashing out. There was a sickening crunch as it connected with Kane's skull, silencing him forever. Coleman turned away, his comm unit already active. This is only the beginning. We root out every last one of them. What followed was a grueling campaign of internal purges. Each new revelation struck at Coleman's core, eroding what little faith he had left in humanity's inherent goodness. The final blow came when irrefutable evidence surfaced of a rebel general conducting horrific experiments on civilians using ruined bioweapons. Coleman stared at the footage, his expression hardening into a mask of cold fury. No more half measures, he declared to his inner circle. From this moment forward, we do whatever it takes to ensure humanity's survival. Whatever it takes. Across liberated human worlds, orbital bombardments rained fire upon suspected Viso strongholds. Voices of moderation were silenced, their pleas for restraint falling on deaf ears. As Galactic Council reinforcements attempted to extract their forces, Coleman unleashed his most terrifying weapon yet, The Corvin swarm descended upon the enemy armada, a tide of ever-replicating hunter-killer drones that turned space itself into a killing field. Coleman watched from the Jovian Thunder's bridge as the slaughter unfolded. Gortak's once mighty fleet disintegrated before his eyes, reduced to little more than cosmic debris. "Sir," a young officer called out, his voice trembling, "we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're suing for peace." A hush fell over the bridge as all eyes turned to Coleman. He stood motionless for a long moment, the weight of countless lives hanging in the balance. "Open a channel," he said at last. "It's time to dictate our terms." The price of victory. The transmission crackled to life, and on the screen appeared the image of Archon Talvar, the architect of humanity's suffering. His voice was smooth, almost melodic as he spoke. "Captain Coleman, it seems we have reached an impasse. The Council recognizes the tenacity and resilience of your species. We are prepared to discuss terms of peace." Coleman's eyes narrowed as he studied the Archon's face, searching for any sign of deceit. "You don't get to dictate terms, Archon. Not after what you've done." Talvar's expression remained impassive. "Indeed, the Council acknowledges the gravity of its actions. We propose a ceasefire, followed by negotiations to establish a new order in the galaxy, one where humanity has a rightful place." The words hung in the air, but Coleman's mind was already racing ahead. The Council was on the back foot, its fleets decimated, its power waning. But the threat of the Viso, the hidden manipulators behind the scenes, remained. This war had shown Coleman that true victory required more than just the defeat of an enemy. It required